Does anybody else remember looking out of the car window when they was a kid and imagining a little character running at the same speed as the car, doing little parkour ninja moves and flips? Well, I randomly do, but mine wasn't a guy or a girl or a creature or an animal. Mine was actually one of these. Mine was one of the ZBots. So who remembers these guys? ZBots. As a kid, I was obsessed with these little things. I didn't know where they came from, what their backstory was, which ones were good guys, which ones were bad guys, or any of that. I just knew that they came in wicked colours, and they were small enough to fit in my pocket so I could take them anywhere. The 90s seemed like a really good time for robots. It was post-Transformers and the Japanese redubbed Western boom, and a whole new style of robot was born. Now we had TV shows like Reboot and Exo Squad and the Bots Master. We had toys like Beast Wars and Z-Knights. We had computer games like Vector Man and Metroid and Turrican, and then a few years later we got Armored Core and Zero Divide. Robots that could use weapons and knives and did martial arts. Robots and mech suits, they were no longer seen as clunky, they could be slick and ninja-like. It just seemed like in the 90s, robots had a real unique sleekness to them. Mutant neon cyborg robot shit was a thing, and I was fully into it. So the ZBots, 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 whatever you want to call them, were originally released in 1992 by Lacombe under their Micromachines banner. They were an awesome legion of micro robots, radical robot machines. Radical, awesome. Notice these words that they're using to try and make them sound not geeky. They wanted these robots to be cool. They wanted these robots to be gnarly.
Totally cool! All new ZBots that really transform.
Like all classic minifigures, they went for a collect 'em all approach. Gotta collect 'em all, gotta have 'em all. The back of the cards featuring a checklist with the names of each guy in a box for you to tick off when you'd bought him. But what made ZBots different is that they had moving parts. Some of them even transformed. They also came with huge playsets and vehicles. They weren't just one-piece casts, they were genuine mini action figures. Very much like Battle Beasts, which is why as a kid, these two toy lines used to go to war in my house on the regular. Fucker! A few weeks ago, I released a little mini documentary all about minifigures, and I featured a little segment on ZBots, and I spoke about this guy. If you watched it, you know how much this guy means to me. But like I said, these are one of my favourite toy lines ever, so all of these guys hold a special place in my heart. So let's have a look at them, let's get to it. Let's check out some ZBots. So this guy I absolutely love. They obviously incorporated some samurai armour into his design when they were sculpting him, which is always a win because he looks like Raiden. I love his colour combo, black, white and red is so 80s and 90s, it's one of my favourite colour schemes. He's got a wicked samurai sword, and then in his other hand he's got this brutal shuriken fucking weird boomerang weapon that looks like if he whacked you in the head with it, it would just fucking take your fucking head off your shoulders. He's awesome, I love this guy, and he's probably my second favourite in the entire series. Check out this guy's Sky Dragon. He's like a cross between a dragonfly, wasp and a robot. He's got movable wings and his hands are held in a certain way that looks like he could drop bombs on his enemies, so I used to use him to drop marbles on enemy ZBots. This dude's some weird alien centipede insect creature. I like how he turns kind of on an axis, so it gives him a bit of attitude. Definitely on that cyborg alien shit, this guy. This guy's got 3 heads like King Ghidorah, like Gelboss J3 from Mazinger Z. Anything with 3 heads is fucking awesome. This dude doesn't have a face, but he has a huge brain, and then instead of hands, he has sickle hooks that move. These guys with 3 legs, I've got 2 of them, so as a kid I'd have these as the sentry guns, like posted up outside the base ready to take out enemy invaders. This guy's a utilitoid, and he's obviously based on an R2 unit from Star Wars. He doesn't look like the kind of robot that will go into battle, but he looks like one that'd be back at the base doing data analysis and maintenance work and that kind of shit. Then this dude just looks sad. He looks like the kind of robot that would get sent to the shop. And then check this guy. He looks like the guy that would send him to the fucking shop. This guy's gnarly. He's like part piranha. I always thought this guy was weird. He looks like he's got a monkey head, and then in his chest, he's got a digital clock. I have no idea why. Check this guy. He's a green robot, and then you pull his back and he turns into a crocodile robot. Fucking dope. And to say how small this is, you even have a mechanism that makes his tongue move. This guy's some little round Cosmo from Transformers Gen 1 looking dude, but then you pull his back and he turns into like an Iron Maiden. His stomach's like the fucking guy from The Thing that bites the dude's arms off. He's fucking dope. Part robot, part bear trap. Some of these designs also took inspiration from sports teams, so you've got the Robo Champs. Some of them look like American NFL football players, basketball players. This guy looks like he's got some kind of hockey stick in his hand. Then you've got characters like this guy who's part robot, part motorbike. This dude that turns into some kind of flying hovercraft. These guys look like fighter jets. So weirdly, these two I never wanted to play with as a kid. If you look at the eyes, you can see that they've got human parts underneath this cybernetic armor. And as a kid, I went through a phase where I didn't want to play with human figures. I learned from a young age how shit humans can be, and how scary adults can be, and how they can be cruel to animals and shit like that, and I just didn't like playing with humans. So it was random as fuck, but for a long time, any human figure just got pushed to the sideline. This is another interesting piece. I never had it as a kid, but I got it from a car boot about 10 years ago. Transo, giant robo battery, and it's actually the official mech suit for my favourite ZBot, Scammer. It's the only vehicle type thing that I have for these guys, but it's a real nice piece to the collection. Now, there's so many different ZBots. It would actually take hours to review every individual one, and I can obviously only talk about the ones that I've got personally, but I could not do this video without mentioning these guys. The Minibot Action Team, which is just one of the many names that these guys were sold under. They're effectively knockoff ZBots. They were sold on market stalls and in discount stores. I personally remember seeing them when we went on holiday to Skegness. And although you do see some colour variants of them, they pretty much all came in these select few neon colours. Now lots of these are just direct takes on existing ZBots, and you can see an obvious comparison between many of them. But then you've got ones like this dude, who, no word of a lie, has a paracetamol tablet for a head. Look at his head. It's like when they were making it, they needed one more guy to make up the numbers. They didn't have time to sculpt a head, so they were like, fuck it, just chuck a tablet in the mould and he can have a tablet for a head. So check this, in this variation, they were packaged as Robo Stars. My friend Captain Redbeard brought this back from Mallorca. And as you can see on the back, these guys are all painted in awesome colours, but the ones on the front are just packaged in them same neon colours that all the other ones are. This particular set were released by Simba Toys, and check the card art, it's got some proper nice knockoff card art there. Also shows the action, look, sword action, leg action. And also, even though these guys were knockoff toy-making pirate cutthroat gangsters, they still wanted you to recycle the card. It's nice to know that pirates still care about the planet. So I couldn't talk about ZBots without mentioning these guys, and although they're nothing to do with ZBots, there's something that as a kid I personally associated with the line. They came out in the 90s around the same time as the ZBots, and as a kid I used to play with them together. I always try and make this show personal to me and my own take on toy lines that I loved growing up and that I continue to collect to this day. And if we're talking about ZBots, I have to mention these guys. These are the Power Work Bots by New-Ray. New-Ray is a toy company that released some crazy toys in the 90s. I would love to do some reviews on these toys, but I just don't really have any. But these were fucking awesome. They were like Ed 209 wind-up walking machines, and I used to have these in the battle with the ZBots. I remember seeing this very pink one at the car boot for the first time when I was a kid and just going fucking crazy, and I bought it for 50p, and it's the same one I've had all these years. Now at the start of this video, I mentioned that I remember looking out of the car window as a kid while we were driving and imagining a little character running at the same speed as the vehicle, and apparently I'm not alone. There was a Reddit forum that came up a few years ago, and apparently people all over the internet remember the same thing. Some people remember a little guy, a little ninja, a little woman, a little character, a wolf, a dog, a strange creature, all sorts of stuff, but it's something that collectively as a kid, a lot of people used to look out of the car window while they were driving and imagine a little character there. And I personally used to remember a little ZBot. I think it's because I used to take my ZBots out with me all the time. When we went on long car journeys, these were toys that fit in your pocket. So as a kid, whenever we were going on a car journey, these are the type of toys that I used to draw for. I used to always pull out the ZBots when it came to long car journeys. So mine was definitely a ZBot, but it wasn't a ZBot that existed, it was one that was in my own head. I imagined it, and I probably haven't drawn this character since I was like 6 years old. In fact, I only just remembered that I even thought it up when it came round to doing this ZBot video. So some people might know if they watch my videos, but my job is an illustrator. That's what I do. I work as a freelance illustrator full time. So I thought for this video, I would combine my love of toys with my love of drawing and try and recreate that character because I still remember what he looks like. So using the screen recording function on my iPad with Procreate, I'm going to try and recreate this character so that you lot can see what I saw in my head all them years ago. Okay, so the first thing I remember about the character is the shape of his head. And I only remember him from the side, so I'm going to draw him from the side. A nice side angle. And what I'm going to do first of all is just do a real quick sketch just to get the form down. I'm going to redraw it again after I do this one. Nice and dynamic, but just do something pretty simple for this first initial sketch of him. He also had a visor, a big round circular visor on the front of his face. He had no features, just a visor. Kind of like a bike helmet or an F1 driver, that kind of thing, like a crash helmet visor. Then his arms, his legs, his neck and his torso are all thin. Thin on this part, and then the forearms fat and chunky. Kind of like piping, real thin. And he's got a real streamlined look to him. So he had these clawed hands. Can't quite get these hands right, so I'm going to just draw them simple for now, and we'll come back to the hands. He's also covered in spikes because he transforms into something, this character. He transforms, like some of the ZBots transformed, this guy transforms. But I'll tell you what he transforms into a bit later on. So he does have these spikes all over his body. I've drawn way too many spikes for the minute, but this is, again, just to get the concept down. The wicked thing about the iPad is that you can redraw stuff and you can cut things out and move them around to get them right. Because I've done his torso a bit tall there, so we want to shrink him down a little bit just to give him more of a little hunched up cartoon character kind of vibe. I don't want to draw this character realistic. I want him to look very comic book, because he's based on a ZBot after all, and they were all like little chunky dudes. So I don't want him to look too much like a human, not humanoid, almost like a child's physique. I want him to have. So let's start with some colouring. The guy was like a real nice cobalt blue kind of colour. Like a nice ocean blue. Very streamlined and slick, this dude. And he had a bit of grey on him and a bit of green. Again, at the minute, just playing with colour, just trying to get everything down just so it looks... Just so I've got the concept there, and then I'm going to redraw it from there. So, I think I've kind of got him. Which means now I can do a whole new layer on the top of it. I'll do a nice white layer, make that slightly transparent so the thing is still underneath that I just drew, and I can trace over that again and rework it and get it in a real nice dynamic pose. So I'm going to work on the hands first of all, because they're the only thing that's like not quite working for me. I can't quite get the hands to work. I can make them look cool, but I want to make them look how I envisioned them in my head when I invented this character when I was 4, 5, 6 years old. Okay, so these hands are starting to look a bit more like how I envisioned them as a kid. We've got his head there looking nice and streamlined. Also, I'm adding loads of like little ridges and moulding lines and that kind of thing, because like I said, this dude just does transform, so I want to at least make him look like he could transform into something. On the front of his chest, he's got this other visor that looks a bit like his eye. I suppose this is what would make him able to see when he transforms into his other form. I always do 2 lines on the piping. Anytime I do any kind of piping or ridges, I always do 2 lines. I just think it looks a little bit more detailed, makes it look like it actually exists, like there's some kind of indent in the ridge. And he's got these kind of torpedo-shaped limbs, a bit like his head. And now I can start adding the colour. Again, going for that like nice navy kind of cobalt blue, but we're going to make it look shiny like it's made of metal. And like I said, nice big red, ruby red visor and chest plate. Then he had this green colour on him, almost like a pastel kind of minty green. I always really like that colour. It's a colour I use on some of the Slimehouse branding and that sometimes. I really like this colour, so he had a little bit of that on him. Just a flare, just a flash of it on his shoulder pads and stuff. And as you can see, I've got him in this dynamic pose that's almost like a camera that's slightly below, a bit like a worm's eye angle, but not quite, and it just makes him look a bit more powerful. Makes him look like he's about to just speed off next to my car. The way I've drawn his feet look like they could bend. They've got like some kind of hinge axis system on his feet, on his toes there for quick running. Something I would have never drawn as a kid, but obviously as an adult now I think more into these things. Okay, so I think I've done him. Now we can go for the big reveal. We can, I can show you guys what I came up with all these years ago. So there he is, there's my guy, what do you think? It's exactly how I pictured him as a youth, but like years later, now with my skills drawing as an adult, I can really make him pop off the page properly how I always would have loved him to look. You can see that he turns here, he transforms into like a shuriken. It's like an alien kind of ninja blade shuriken saw blade thing, so he'd be running and jump, transform, turn into this rotary like buzz saw blade, and he'd carry on rolling. I had to take one of his spikes away. He had one too many spikes. If you look, he's got 8 spikes, exactly 8, and that's how many make up the shuriken. And like I said, the screen that's in his chest would act as the eye when he transformed, so he could see where he was going. And there's all little compartments there that looks like he's compacted himself into this blade there. Bit of dust around his feet, so he looks like he's just maybe ran and just skidded and then ready to take off again. It's funny now when I look back at this character and see all the things that must have influenced it, all the things that I loved as a kid that subliminally influenced his character without me even knowing it. If you look at his head, it's long like a xenomorph from Aliens. As a kid, I was obsessed with the Alien vs Predator Dark Horse comics, and I used to read them all the time, so that's obviously where that came from. He's got spikes and he's blue and he runs fast like Sonic. Anybody that grew up in my era, in the 80s or the 90s, will have played Sonic religiously. He's also got arms and legs like Blinky from Bucky Aware, one of my favourite cartoons and toy lines ever. He transforms. The Transformers original Gen 1 series is my favourite cartoon of all time. I can pretty much quote every line from Transformers Gen 1 ever. So this must be why he transformed. And then he turned into a shuriken. One of my favourite platform games ever, my favourite platform game ever, is Turrican on Amiga. And when you played that game and you pressed spacebar, he transformed into, you guessed it, a fucking circular saw blade shuriken. So that's obviously where all this shit came from without me even really knowing it. All this stuff is things that I must have subliminally ingested without even really realising, and it's only now looking back as a 32-year-old, something I created when I was like 6. All the stuff that went into creating it without me even realising, it just goes to show that all the stuff that we probably love and collect and create, or I create, you create, or someone else creates, all probably came from something else. That everything that is created must come from someone somewhere, and it's how we take it and reinterpret it and recreate it ourselves that makes it special and gives it its own flavour. I love quotes, and one of my favourite quotes ever comes from legendary surreal artist Salvador Dali. And he says, "Those who do not want to imitate produce nothing." And I think nobody can really argue with that. As a guy that wants to create characters and movies and worlds and toys, it's mad looking back to think that this is the first ever character that I created. He doesn't have a name, I don't know where he comes from or anything like that. All I know is that he was influenced by ZBots and other toys that I loved as a kid, and he used to run alongside of the car when we went on long car journeys. And he, again, like most of the things in my life that means a lot to me and gets me through this crazy world, is all stuff that I was influenced by and loved as a kid. If you enjoyed this episode, please don't forget to give us a like and subscribe to our channel. You can also follow us on Instagram, and if you want to help make Slimehouse bigger and better than ever, then you can also consider being an absolute legend and subscribing to our Patreon. Once again, thanks so much for watching, and we'll catch you next time on Slimehouse TV.